Good Monday evening. I'm Chief Meteorologist Emily Walls, and kind of rocking the weather world today is all about the tropics. So we had our Eastern Pacific hurricane season begin on May 15th, and it's finally getting rocking and rolling. And for the Atlantic, that began on June 1st. We still have yet to have a named storm in the Atlantic, but tonight we're going to be focusing pretty heavily on the Eastern Pacific because there's kind of an interesting thing that's happening. Not only have we had our very first hurricane of 2025 so far that has now officially developed in the Eastern Pacific, but there are now two named storms. They're only a couple hundred miles away, and we could potentially be seeing another one developing in just a few more days. So let's dive in. We'll start talking about it. First up, we're going to talk about Hurricane Barbara. So you can see this is just off the coast of the western coast of Mexico, and it has 75-mile-per-hour sustained winds. So a Category 1 hurricane, wind speeds begin at 74 miles per hour. So this is just barely a hurricane at this point. It has been a tropical storm up until this point, but for the rest of this evening, it is likely going to maintain that hurricane strength. We have maximum wind gusts of 90 miles per hour, and it's moving northwesterly at only about 10 miles per hour. But you'll notice from this map, just west of Barbara, we have Tropical Storm Cosme. That, too, is in a strengthening state and will likely become a hurricane sometime tonight, if not in the early morning hours of tomorrow. First, let's track Hurricane Barbara on where it's headed. So this is on a northwesterly track. The good news for Mexico is that this is going to be staying offshore. Now, we're still going to have the swells associated with this. We're still going to pick up rain associated with this. Some parts of Mexico could be seeing as much as 2 to 4 inches of rain, but it shouldn't be enough to necessarily cause any sort of destruction or damage. Things are looking like the worst of it is going to be staying offshore. But notice how quickly this is expected to weaken. So right now it's a Category 1. We have those sustained winds at about 75 miles per hour. But late tonight into tomorrow, this is likely going to be downgraded to a tropical storm. Why is this happening? Well, it's coming down to the water temperatures. The water temperatures are not going to be warm enough to sustain that hurricane strength storm for much longer because as it moves to the north and the west, it's getting into cooler waters. And by the time this is just off the coast of Baja California, it looks like it's going to be just your average low pressure system, 25 to 35 mile per hour sustained winds. The wind field associated with Barbara at this time is about 130 miles in width. So what the orange shading is here, that is your tropical storm force winds. And then right in the center, there's a very small red dot that's representing the hurricane force winds. But again, we're just barely at that hurricane status. Regardless, Hurricane Barbara is officially the very first hurricane of the 2025 season. Let's bounce over and talk about Cosme now. So this is currently a tropical storm because the maximum sustained winds are at 70 miles per hour. Remember, we need that 74 mile per hour threshold in order for this to be considered a hurricane. But we are expected to get there over the next couple of hours because this thing is sitting over really, really warm waters right now. It has about 81, 82 degree water temperatures just underneath of this storm. The maximum wind gusts at this point are up to 85 miles per hour, and we have northwesterly winds right around 9 miles, or northwesterly movement, I should say, at about 9 miles per hour. So both of these storms are moving northwesterly, and then they kind of take a turn to the north and the east. Cosme is going to follow basically the same path that Barbara does, taking off toward the northeast just ever so slightly. But again, notice how quickly this thing is expected to weaken. So tonight, it's all about strengthening for Cosme. We're going from a tropical storm status likely up to a Category 1 hurricane with maximum sustained winds forecast to be right around 75 miles per hour. So the strengths are going to be about the same. But then through the day on Tuesday, and then definitely Tuesday night into Wednesday, as it continues to make its way off toward the north and the northeast, it's getting into that cooler water. So that's going to take this Category 1 hurricane and knock it back down to tropical storm strength, and then eventually just your average low pressure system moving through. It's going to have rain and then winds only about 25 to 35 miles per hour. So rapid weakening is expected with Cosme likely Tuesday night and then definitely into Wednesday. Let's take a check of the wind field with this one as well. Not quite as large as Barbara. It's about 108 miles in diameter. So again, what you're looking at here, that orange shading, that's how far reaching the tropical storm force winds are, which is 39 miles per hour or higher. Now, looking ahead for later this week, this product is coming from the National Hurricane Center, and all locations that you see here highlighted in red, so this giant red area over the eastern Pacific, this has a 70% chance of cyclone formation late this week and into this upcoming weekend. So the favorability of the environment as well as those sea surface temperatures is really high in this region. So we're likely going to see yet another tropical disturbance developing. But whether or not it actually becomes a named storm, that's going to be something that we have to track closely. But for the most part, it's been a very active start to the week across the eastern Pacific. For the Atlantic, things have still been really quiet, but we've had Saharan dust moving across the atmosphere from, of course, the Sahara Desert over toward the southeastern U.S., and that almost acts to stunt any development over the Atlantic. So that's going to continue likely through the month of June, but then we really start to ramp things up typically in the Atlantic going into July, August, and then definitely into September. Let's take a check of those water temperatures. So again, to maintain a hurricane or a tropical storm, you need sea surface temperatures of right around 80 degrees or higher. And you can see across the southwestern coast of Mexico, that's where we have those really warm sea surface temperatures. But notice how quickly they drop off to the north. That's why both Barbara and Cosme are likely going to weaken so rapidly as they make off toward the north and the northwest. Air quality. This is another, of course, really big weather story all across the area, not just here in the Chicagoland region, but all of the Midwest, the East Coast. A lot of us have been impacted by those Canadian wildfires, and the air quality as it stands right now, what you're looking at is all locations that are highlighted in yellow, which is fairly splotchy across the United States. This is moderate air quality, and what that means is that for most individuals, you're really not going to notice it. We have that haze in the air, but for those of you that are sensitive to air pollution, you could potentially still be feeling those effects. Here locally, we're still seeing moderate air quality across the far southern sections of the viewing area, including portions of LaSalle County, over into Grundy County, definitely portions of Will and Kankakee, and then all of northwest Indiana also included in this as well. And unfortunately, while a lot of us are starting to get a brief break, and even though we had that haze in the air today, it hasn't necessarily been concentrated down at the surface level for a lot of us to feel it. That could change going into tomorrow. So take a look at this model here. This is Futurecast Smoke. And what it's showing right now is essentially lining up really well with the map that I was just showing you with that moderate air quality across the southern half of Chicagoland and then over into northwest Indiana. But setting this in motion, taking us through tonight, we are going to continue to get a brief break. But the haze in the air, it's not going anywhere. And then tomorrow, we're going to have northwesterly wind flow, and that's going to bring another plume of smoke down across the Chicagoland area. So this map that you're looking at, all of those reds, the oranges that you see kind of lighting up right over Chicagoland, that's going to be another really dense plume of smoke that we could be dealing with tomorrow and into Tuesday night. And that's going to potentially bring those higher concentrations of those pollutants down to the ground level. So for those of you that are in sensitive groups, you're likely going to be feeling the impacts of that. And even for those of you that aren't in the sensitive groups, you could potentially, if you're doing any sort of strenuous activity outside, you could potentially be feeling that in your throat, maybe in your chest, with how dense that's going to be. So if you think back to last week, when we had that day with really high concentration, it looked really smoky and hazy outside. That's what tomorrow could potentially look like. So if you're trying to plan your day, just know that staying indoors tomorrow is likely going to be your best bet. Satellite and radar. Here's the setup that we have. We have a very large cold front that has already moved through the area. And fortunately today, we haven't had much in the way of strong to severe thunderstorms. A lot of that has been over to our east in places like Michigan, and then also riding right along that frontal boundary. Right now, we do have areas of severe thunderstorm watches, and we even have warnings, even a couple tornado warnings, it looks like, in portions of Pennsylvania, even in portions of New York State. We're seeing some severe storms. Same thing over in portions of New Mexico and Texas. But here locally, we're in pretty decent shape. Now, if you've been hoping for rain, unfortunately today we dodged a lot of it. We had a couple stray showers and thunderstorms near the Wisconsin border, and then a few more developed in the afternoon over northwest Indiana. But as of right now, it is very calm and quiet. We're on the backside of this frontal boundary. We're getting that cooler air to build in, and skies are beginning to clear. So if you're going to be out and about this evening, again, you still will notice that haze in the air, but you shouldn't be feeling it down at the ground surface, although tomorrow that is going to be a little bit of a different story here. And we really do need the rain. So your drought monitor, take a look. This comes out every Thursday morning, and we're still considered to be in a moderate drought across the majority of our area. That does include places like Cook County, most of northwest Indiana. The exception being LaSalle County, southwestern Kendall County, and then western Grundy County, highlighted in yellow there. That's abnormally dry conditions, which means, of course, we still need some rain, but it's not quite as bad as what we're experiencing elsewhere. After the break, I'm going to be talking about our rain chances in the coming days, in addition to your local forecast and how is Father's Day looking. Those details coming up. Welcome back. After a few days of scattered showers and thunderstorms across the area, of course, the severe storms that we had across portions of the area, and mainly in Kane County, DuPage County yesterday, I think a lot of us are looking for a little bit of a break. But again, we still could use some rain across the area. Most of us are in a moderate drought, and we're going to get a break from the rain Tuesday and Wednesday. But then Thursday, Friday, and on Saturday, we have a chance of showers, maybe a couple rumbles of thunder. And it looks like we're going to be going into somewhat of an unsettled weather pattern late this week and then into this upcoming weekend locally across the Great Lakes and the Chicagoland area. We're going to be seeing, I think, several rounds of showers and thunderstorms rolling through. So Futurecast taking us throughout the next 48 hours or so. Tonight, quiet, nothing to worry about. We have temperatures that are going to be dropping down to the lower 50s, so it is going to be kind of a cooler start to your day tomorrow. And then through the day tomorrow, wildfire smoke is really going to be the main hazard that we're talking about. Otherwise, it looks like a really nice day. We're going to be in the upper 70s. We'll have that hazy sunshine through the day, and your wind speed's not going to be too bad, but I think they're going to be right around 10 to 20 miles per hour, so at least a nice breeze to keep us cool tomorrow. And then on Wednesday, that is going to be our hot day. So we have one day this week with temperatures that are going to be soaring into the upper 80s, close to 90 degrees. But that cold front that you see approaching from the north, that's going to move through Wednesday evening, kind of sending us back to reality. So if you've been hoping for those 80s, it's just going to be a one-day deal for us this week, because by Thursday, we're going to be back down into the mid-70s again. Here's your daily almanac. We topped out at 71 degrees at O'Hare. Average is 79, so of course below average is what we were dealing with. Record high temperature is 98. Didn't come close to that. The biggest day warm up that we're going to have is Wednesday, 89 degrees. Then we're back down to the mid-70s Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Looking beyond that, this is into next week. It looks as though the temperature outlook is really favoring that we could be seeing above average conditions sticking around. The next couple of days around here were dry Tuesday and Wednesday. Then Thursday, Friday, Saturday, we do have that chance of rain. Temperatures, though, very comfortable. I will have your Father's Day forecast coming up on the news at 9. We'll see you then.